The first glass shattered before Ruby Collins understood that someone had placed a foot in her path. The second glass struck the marble floor. The third emptied across the white shirt of the most feared man in Manhattan. Red wine spread over the chest of Vincent Salvatore like fresh blood. The private dining room fell silent. Ruby stood frozen beside the long black table, one hand still gripping the empty silver tray. Around her sat 12 men and women whose families controlled shipping docks, luxury hotels, private security companies, and several businesses nobody discussed aloud. Every face turned toward her. At the center of the table, Vincent slowly lowered his eyes to the stain across his shirt. Ruby could hear her own breathing. She could also hear the quiet scrape of chairs as the bodyguards near the doors moved their hands beneath their jackets. Celeste Belandi sat 2 seats away from Vincent. Her jeweled shoe had already disappeared beneath her chair. But Ruby had felt the deliberate pressure against her ankle. Celeste had tripped her. Nobody else appeared willing to say it. Ruby swallowed and lowered the tray. "I am sorry. Mr. Salvatore. Someone caught my foot." Celeste lifted one perfect eyebrow. "Are you blaming a guest for your lack of balance?" Ruby looked at her. "I am explaining what happened." A murmur moved through the room. Waitresses did not challenge women like Celeste Belandi. They apologized, lowered their eyes, and accepted whatever punishment protected the reputation of the restaurant. Ruby had done enough lowering of her eyes in her life. Vincent said nothing. He sat completely still. His dark hair pushed back from a face that looked as if it had been carved to frighten people. His expression revealed no anger. But the silence around him felt more dangerous than shouting. Ruby had served him several times during the 6 months she had worked at Belladonna. He never raised his voice. He never repeated an order. He never touched anyone unless he intended to make the contact impossible to forget. Tonight, his black signet ring rested against the stem of his untouched wineglass. The ring contained a flat piece of onyx surrounded by a pattern of silver vines. Ruby had noticed it before because the workmanship reminded her of the designs her father once created. Before the fire, before the police declared his death an accident, before Ruby packed every tool from his workshop into boxes she had never opened again, Vincent lifted his hand. His guard stopped moving. Ruby expected him to order her dismissal. She expected the restaurant manager to appear with an apology and remove her before the guests demanded something worse. Instead, Vincent reached beneath the table. Nobody noticed his other hand close around the signet ring. Nobody except Ruby. She watched him remove it from his finger. Then he rose. He was taller than she remembered. Without the distance of the table, his presence seemed to fill the room. Wine ran from his shirt to the edge of his black belt. Ruby forced herself not to step back. Vincent moved close enough for his shoulder to block the view of the others. His hand brushed the side of her apron. Something heavy slipped into her pocket. Her pulse stopped. His ring. Before she could react, Vincent looked over her shoulder at Marco De Luca, the head of his security team. "Take her through the private corridor. No one touch her." The words should have sounded like protection to Ruby. They sounded like a sentence. He had placed a valuable ring inside her pocket in a room filled with witnesses. Now, he was sending her away before anyone noticed it was missing. He was framing her. Ruby stared into his eyes. Why his expression did not change. "Leave now." Marco approached from behind her. "Miss Collins." Ruby wanted to reach into her pocket and throw the ring onto the table. She wanted to tell everyone exactly what Vincent had done. Then she saw Adrian Salvatore watching them. Adrian was the older brother of the late Salvatore patriarch. He had silver hair, patient eyes, and the relaxed confidence of a man who had spent decades convincing dangerous people that he was harmless. His gaze dropped toward the pocket of Ruby. Something cold passed through her. He had seen. Vincent stepped between them. His body concealed Ruby from the table. "Go," he said. Marco guided her toward a narrow door behind the wine cabinet. Ruby crossed the room beneath the stares of the rival families. Celeste smiled as if she had just watched an animal being led toward a cage. The moment the door closed behind them, Ruby pulled away from Marco. "I did not steal anything." Marco kept walking. "I did not say that you did. Your employer put his ring in my pocket." Marco stopped. His face remained unreadable. But Ruby saw recognition in his eyes. "You should not remove it here." Ruby reached toward her apron. Marco caught her wrist. The movement was fast but not cruel. "There are cameras in this corridor." Ruby looked toward the ceiling. A black lens followed them from above. Marco released her. "Keep your hands where they can be seen." Why would he do this? Marco opened the service elevator. Because someone in that room wanted the ring more than they wanted him alive. The elevator doors opened. Ruby did not move. "What is inside it?" Marco looked at her with a warning that seemed almost sympathetic. "Do not ask that question again unless Vincent is standing beside you." The doors closed behind them. 2 floors below the dining room. Marco led Ruby into the administrative office. The restaurant manager, Howard Blake, waited beside the desk. His face was pale. Howard looked from Ruby to the stained apron. "You spilled wine on Mr. Salvatore." Ruby folded her arms. "A guest tripped me." "That distinction will not matter if the Belandi family complains. It should matter to you." Howard looked toward Marco before lowering his voice. "Ruby, you need to understand what kind of evening this is. The people upstairs are negotiating a truce. One mistake could destroy more than this restaurant. Then you should speak to the woman who caused it." Howard rubbed his forehead. "You are suspended until I receive instructions." Marco interrupted him. "She is not suspended." Howard blinked. "Mr. Salvatore ordered her removed. He ordered her protected." Ruby turned toward Marco. "Protected from what?" A heavy impact echoed above them. Then another. The lights flickered. Marco reached beneath his jacket and drew a weapon. Ruby stepped back. "What happened?" Marco touched the small communication device in his ear. His expression hardened. Someone had cut power to the private dining room. The negotiation was no longer a dinner. It was an ambush. Marco opened the office door. "Stay behind me." Ruby looked at the ring, pressing against the fabric of her apron. Someone had attacked an entire restaurant to reach a piece of jewelry now hidden against her hip. "I am giving this back." "Not yet. I am not carrying evidence for a man who refuses to explain anything." Marco glanced at the camera in the corner. "Then you may not live long enough to hear the explanation." The emergency lights turned red. A fire alarm began screaming through Belladonna. Guests poured from the public dining room. Waiters abandoned trays. Security guards locked the front entrance while black vehicles stopped along the street outside. Marco pulled Ruby into the private elevator. As the doors closed, she saw Howard reach for the office telephone. A second later, the glass wall behind him exploded inward. Ruby dropped. Marco covered her head with one arm as fragments struck the elevator doors. The elevator began rising. "That was not meant to kill Howard," Marco said. "It was meant to make everyone run." "Why?" "Because frightened people stop watching one another." The doors opened to smoke. The private dining room was empty, except for overturned chairs and broken glass. Guards surrounded Vincent near the far wall. He had removed the stained shirt. A black jacket covered his bare shoulders. A thin cut marked one side of his face. But he appeared untouched by panic. Adrian stood near him. Celeste was gone. Vincent saw Ruby and crossed the room immediately. "Did anyone search you?" "No." "Did anyone touch the ring?" "Only you." Something shifted in his expression. Relief. It vanished so quickly that Ruby almost believed she had imagined it. She reached into her pocket. "Take it back." Vincent closed his hand over hers before she could remove the ring. His fingers were warm and firm. "Not here." Ruby looked into his eyes. "You placed stolen evidence on me and sent me into a corridor where someone tried to create an evacuation. I am not walking another step until you tell me what is happening. The guards around them went silent. Nobody spoke to Vincent that way. Vincent lowered his gaze to their joined hands. For one dangerous moment, Ruby thought he would threaten her. Instead, he loosened his grip. The ring contains the name of the person who ordered the murder of my father. Ruby stared at him. Vincent continued. It also contains the names of everyone who helped that person steal from my family for 20 years. Why give it to me? Because nobody at that table believed I would trust a waitress with anything important. Ruby pulled her hand free. You did not trust me. You used me. Vincent met her anger without denying it. Yes. The honesty struck harder than an excuse. Adrian approached. Vincent, the families are waiting downstairs. Celeste claims the waitress took advantage of the confusion and stole your ring. Ruby looked toward him. She claims what Adrian gave her, a regretful smile. Your pocket should be searched before the accusation spreads. Vincent stepped in front of Ruby. No. Adrian looked surprised. A search would clear her name. A search would give you the ring. The room changed. The guards did not raise their weapons, but every man became still. Adrian held the gaze of Vincent. You cannot seriously suspect me. I suspect everyone. Including the woman behind you. Vincent did not look at Ruby. Especially her. The words cut through her. Ruby understood the strategy. Vincent could not appear protective. He could not reveal why he had chosen her. Suspicion kept their enemies uncertain. Understanding did not make the humiliation easier. Adrian nodded slowly. Then let the families witness the search. Vincent turned toward Ruby. We are going downstairs. Ruby lowered her voice. I will not be searched in front of those people. You will not be searched. You cannot stop them without explaining the ring. Vincent looked at her apron pocket. I can give them another explanation. The public dining room had been cleared of ordinary guests. Only the rival families remained. They stood between white tables and broken glasses, while armed guards watched every exit. The emergency lights had been replaced by bright chandeliers, making the room feel less like a restaurant and more like a courtroom. Celeste waited near the center. When Ruby entered beside Vincent, Celeste pointed toward her. She disappeared immediately after the ring vanished. Search her. Howard stepped forward with 2 female members of security. Ruby stopped walking. The entire room watched her. She had spent years serving people who looked through her. Wealthy customers complained when she stood too close to photographs. Men made jokes about her body when they believed she could not hear. Women asked whether the restaurant supplied uniforms in a larger size. Ruby had learned to survive humiliation by refusing to show pain. This felt different. This was not about wine or her body. They wanted to turn her into a thief because they believed nobody powerful would defend her. Adrian raised his voice. Empty your pockets. Miss Collins. Ruby looked at Vincent. His face remained cold. For one terrible second, she wondered whether he would sacrifice her after all. Then he walked toward her. Every guard followed him with their eyes. Vincent stopped directly in front of Ruby and lowered himself onto one knee. A stunned silence moved through the restaurant. Ruby forgot how to breathe. Vincent reached into her apron pocket. His fingers closed around the signet ring. He lifted it into the light. Gasps came from the tables. Celeste smiled in triumph. Vincent took the left hand of Ruby. She tried to pull away. His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt her, but enough to make the refusal private. He slid the ring onto her finger. The silver band was too large, but his thumb held it in place. Nobody can accuse her of stealing what I chose to give her. Adrian stared at him. That ring belongs to the head of the Salvatore family. Vincent rose without releasing Ruby. Then everyone in this room should consider what it means that she is wearing it. The gaze of Celeste moved from the ring to the face of Ruby. You cannot be serious. She is a waitress. Vincent turned his head. and you are a guest who deliberately placed her foot in front of a moving tray. The color left the face of Celeste. Vincent continued. You created the distraction. Someone else cut the power. I would like to know whether those events were planned together. The Belandi guards stepped forward. The Salvatore guards matched them. Ruby stood between two criminal families with the ring of Vincent hanging loosely around her finger. She wanted to disappear. Instead, she lifted her chin and looked directly at Celeste. You should have chosen a waitress with a worse memory. Celeste narrowed her eyes. Ruby continued. You asked for a table beside the east exit. You changed your seat twice. You refused wine until Adrian arrived. You placed your left foot into the service aisle 3 seconds before I passed. Every person in the room turned toward Adrian. Celeste began to speak. But Ruby did not allow her. The emergency power failed 4 minutes later. That means someone knew exactly when the tray would cross behind Vincent. Vincent looked at Ruby with new attention. Adrian smiled. An impressive memory does not prove conspiracy. No, Ruby said. But the camera above the wine cabinet might. The smile faded. Vincent turned to Marco. Secure every recording. Marco left immediately. Adrian moved toward the exit. Vincent spoke without raising his voice. Sit down. Adrian stopped. The command carried enough force to silence the entire room. The older man slowly returned to his chair. Vincent guided Ruby toward the private corridor. The moment the door closed behind them, she tore her hand from his. Take the ring. No. You made everyone believe I belonged to you. It was the only explanation they would fear more than theft. You could have warned me. I did not know what Adrian had seen. That is not an answer. Vincent moved closer. It is the only one I can give while the building is compromised. Ruby held the ring between 2 fingers. Then find somewhere safe and tell me everything. His eyes lowered to her mouth for less than a second. You are giving me an order. Yes, nobody orders me. Ruby placed the ring against his chest. Then consider this a condition. You want me to carry your secret. I need to know whether it is worth dying for. Vincent looked down at the ring between them. When he lifted his gaze again, the coldness had returned. Marco will take you to my penthouse. Your penthouse. It has private security. I am not going home with you. Your apartment is already being watched. Ruby stopped. How do you know where I live? I know the name, address, and employment history of every person allowed near a meeting between rival families. Her anger sharpened. Then you know I have nothing to do with your world. I knew that before tonight. Yet you still put the ring in my pocket. Vincent leaned closer. Because innocence is the one thing no person at that table understands. The penthouse occupied the highest floors of a black glass tower overlooking Manhattan. Ruby entered through a private elevator surrounded by 4 guards. Vincent arrived 20 minutes later, wearing a clean black shirt beneath his jacket. He walked past the marble entryway without admiring the view. This place was not a home to him. It was a fortress built above the city. Ruby remained near the elevator. I want my telephone. Marco placed it on a table. Ruby checked the screen. 7 missed calls from Howard. 3 messages from co-workers. 1 photograph from an unknown number. She opened it. The image showed the front door of her apartment. A black circle had been drawn around the lock. Beneath the picture were 6 words. Return the ring before midnight or burn. Vincent took the telephone from her hand. Ruby did not resist. He studied the message. Marco, clear the building. Bring everything she needs. Ruby looked at Vincent. My apartment, your entire building. There are families living there. They will be moved to a hotel. You cannot displace 20 people because of me. I can keep 20 people alive because of you. The calm certainty in his voice frightened her more than panic would have. Ruby turned toward the windows. The city spread beneath them in silver and gold. From this height, Every street looked peaceful. Nobody could see the armed vehicles surrounding her apartment or the men searching for the ring on her finger. She tried to remove it. Vincent caught her hand. Do not. It does not fit. That can be changed. She looked at him. You are taking this false claim too far. His thumb rested against her knuckles. The families watched me place it on you. Removing it tonight would tell them the gesture was a deception. It was a deception. They do not need to know that. Ruby pulled away. I do. For the first time, Vincent seemed uncertain how to answer her. He walked toward a hidden panel in the wall and pressed his palm against the glass. A safe opened. Inside were several weapons, stacks of documents, and a photograph of a younger Vincent standing beside an older man. The older man had the same severe eyes. My father, Vincent said. Ruby approached cautiously. He was killed 12 years ago. The official story claimed a rival family ordered the shooting. I believed it until 3 months ago. What changed? Our accountant found payments from Salvatore companies to men involved in the attack. Someone inside my family funded the murder. Vincent removed a slim reading device from the safe. The accountant copied the records. Before he could give them to me, he was found dead. The only thing missing from his office was the original ledger. Ruby looked at the ring. The records are inside this memory card and a strip of photographic film. Why use a ring? Because digital records can be erased. Paper can be burned. A ring worn by the head of my family is protected by tradition. Nobody can demand that I surrender it without declaring war. Until you handed it to a waitress. A flicker of admiration touched his face. Exactly. Ruby placed the ring beneath the light. The silver vines curled around the onyx in a pattern that pulled at something buried in her memory. She rotated it. Nothing happened. She pressed the black stone. Still nothing. Vincent watched her. What are you doing? Ruby did not answer. Her father had once shown her a music box with a false bottom. He had taught her that the finest locks were not opened by strength. They were opened by rhythm. Ruby tapped the side of the ring twice. She paused. Then she tapped once more. A quiet click came from beneath the stone. Vincent went completely still. Ruby twisted the onyx to the left. A narrow compartment opened. Inside lay a piece of transparent film and a memory card no larger than her fingernail. Vincent stared at her. How did you do that? Ruby looked inside the band. 2 letters had been engraved beneath the compartment. E. Seth. Her knees weakened. Vincent caught her elbow. Ruby. She lifted the ring toward the light. Those are the initials of my father. Vincent looked at the engraving. What was his name? Elias Collins. The reaction was immediate. Vincent released her and stepped back. Ruby saw recognition before he concealed it. You knew him. Vincent remained silent. You knew my father. I knew his name. How he designed this ring for my father? Ruby stared at him. The room seemed to tilt. My father made jewelry for private clients. He never told me who they were. He was more than a jeweler. What does that mean? Vincent walked toward the windows. Your father created secure compartments for my family. Rings, watches, boxes, and ceremonial objects. He designed places where information could be hidden during war. Ruby felt the fire return to her memory. The police had said a lamp fell in the workshop. The flames destroyed every order book, every design, and almost every tool. He died 6 months after your father, she said. Vincent looked at her reflection in the glass. I know. Ruby crossed the room. Did your family kill him? Vincent turned. I do not know. That answer is not good enough. It is the truth. You investigated everyone who worked inside this restaurant, but you never investigated the man who created the ring you wear every day. Vincent accepted the accusation without looking away. The records concerning your father disappeared before I took control of the family. Because somebody removed them. Yes, The words seemed to tear open a door neither of them could close. Ruby placed the film and memory card on the table. Open them. Vincent connected the memory card to the reading device. A list of transactions appeared. Companies, dates, payments, names. Ruby leaned closer. She recognized Adrian Salvatore immediately. His name appeared beside 7 transfers made during the week before the murder of the father of Vincent. Other entries linked him to Belandi businesses and public officials. The final column contained a repeated symbol, a circle crossed by 3 silver lines. Ruby touched the screen. I have seen that mark. Where? In the workshop of my father. Vincent turned toward her. It was carved into a cabinet. He told me never to open it. Does the cabinet still exist? The workshop burned. Did you see it destroyed? Ruby remembered the night of the fire. She had been 17. A neighbor pulled her away while flames swallowed the rear windows. She had never gone inside afterward. The building was sold at auction. To whom Ruby searched her memory. A development company called Black Harbor Properties. Vincent looked toward Marco. Marco had entered without sound and now stood near the elevator. Find the owner. Marco opened a secure tablet. 30 seconds later, his expression changed. Black Harbor Properties belonged to Adrian Salvatore. The apartment of Ruby had been searched before Marco arrived. Nothing valuable was taken. The front door was broken. The mattress cut open. The kitchen cabinets emptied. And every box from the old workshop had disappeared. Vincent showed Ruby the photographs the following morning. She stood in the penthouse kitchen wearing clothes Marco had purchased for her. The soft blue sweater fit perfectly, which meant someone had learned her size without asking. That realization should have made her angry. Instead, she felt exposed. They took the tools of my father. Vincent stood across from her. They believed something was hidden among them. There was nothing. Are you certain? Ruby looked at the photograph of her ruined bedroom. I packed those boxes myself. Did your father teach you any other mechanisms? He taught me hundreds. Vincent waited. Ruby closed the telephone screen. That does not mean I trust you with them. His jaw tightened. You opened the ring because I wanted to know why people were willing to kill me for it. I can protect you more effectively if you tell me everything. Ruby looked around the silent penthouse. Protection without freedom is a cage. Vincent stepped closer. Freedom without protection will put you in a grave. The words were brutal, but fear moved beneath them. Not fear for the empire. Fear for her. Ruby noticed it and wished she had not. She had spent the night in a guest room with 2 guards outside the door. Vincent had remained in his office. Twice, Ruby woke and heard his footsteps stop in the corridor. He never entered. He never knocked. He simply stood beyond the door as if listening for proof that she was still breathing. Ruby folded her arms. I am returning to work. No, you do not control my employment. I own Belladonna. Then I resign. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You will not leave the building. You gave the families your ring because you needed a lie. You do not get to turn that lie into ownership. Vincent stopped directly in front of her. I am not trying to own you. You sent strangers to buy my clothes. You placed guards outside my bedroom. You evacuated my apartment building. Because someone threatened to burn it, you still should have asked me. Would you have agreed? No. Then everyone inside would still be in danger. Ruby hated that he was right. She hated even more that he used the truth as a weapon. The private elevator opened. Celeste Belandi walked into the penthouse wearing a white coat and an expression of controlled fury. 2 Belandi guards remained behind her. Ruby looked at Vincent. You allow her to enter without permission, Celeste answered before he could. I am permitted because our families are expected to announce an alliance. Ruby looked toward Vincent. What kind of alliance? Celeste smiled. Marriage. The word landed with more force than it should have. Ruby reminded herself that the ring meant nothing. The kneeling gesture meant nothing. Vincent had used her to protect evidence. Still, the thought of him placing another ring on the hand of Celeste created a sharp ache beneath her ribs. Vincent spoke calmly. No marriage has been agreed. Your uncle has already approved the announcement. My uncle does not approve my decisions. Celeste looked at the hand of Ruby. She is still wearing the ring. Ruby removed it immediately. Vincent caught it before it struck the floor. The movement brought them close. Too close. Ruby felt the heat of his body and saw the sudden anger in his eyes. He lowered his voice. Put it back on. No. Every camera in the lobby recorded her arrival. Ruby said, if she leaves and tells the families I removed it, your deception is exposed. That is your concern, not mine. Vincent held the ring between them. My concern is that the moment they believe you no longer matter to me, they will kill you. Celeste laughed quietly. She never mattered to you. Vincent turned his head. Leave. Celeste stared at him. Our families need this marriage. I said leave. His voice remained calm. But one of the Belandi guards stepped backward. Celeste looked at Ruby with open hatred. You believe he protected you because you are special. He protected the object in your pocket. When this ends, you will return to serving tables, and he will marry a woman who understands his world. Ruby refused to show how deeply the words entered her. Then he should marry quickly. I would like my life back. Celeste left. The elevator doors closed. Vincent still held the ring. Ruby walked toward the guest room. He followed her. You do not believe her. I believe what you have shown me. What have I shown you? That everything is strategy. Vincent caught her wrist. Ruby turned sharply. His hand loosened. But he did not release her. The distance between them disappeared. He looked at her face with an intensity that made her breathing uneven. I stood outside your door because I thought someone might reach you while you slept. Ruby did not move. I know. I have not slept for more than an hour since the message arrived. That is not my fault. No. His thumb moved once against her pulse. It is becoming my weakness. The admission frightened them both. Vincent lowered his head. Ruby saw the moment he almost kissed her. His eyes dropped to her lips. His fingers tightened around her wrist. The cold control in his expression broke for a single breath. Then he released her. The distance returned. Put on the ring, he said. Ruby took it from his hand. Not because you ordered me. Why? Then, because, until we know who killed our fathers, neither of us is free. She slid it onto her finger. For the first time, Vincent did not look at the ring. He looked only at her. They returned to Belladonna after midnight. The restaurant was closed. Guards occupied every entrance. Workers had replaced the shattered windows. But the faint smell of wine remained in the private dining room. Ruby sat across from Vincent at the same table where she had spilled the tray. The photographic film lay beneath a small projector. When Vincent activated the light, rows of handwritten records appeared on the wall. Ruby studied them. These are not financial accounts. Vincent moved closer. They look like dates and locations. They are measurements. For what Ruby followed the columns. Her father often disguised combinations as jewelry dimensions. The first number represented a location. The second represented a compartment. The third represented a sequence. She pointed toward one repeated entry. This is not a payment. It is an address. Vincent entered the numbers into a secure map. The location appeared near the harbor, an abandoned workshop. Ruby stared at the screen. That was the workshop of my father. The building had not been demolished. Adrian had preserved it behind the legal ownership of Black Harbor Properties. Vincent ordered the vehicles prepared. Ruby stood. I am coming. No. The codes belong to my father. The men inside may be armed. Then protect me. Vincent looked at her. She saw the answer forming. Ruby stepped closer. You used me when it was convenient. You do not get to hide me when the truth becomes dangerous. Something like pride entered his expression. Wear a coat. 6 black vehicles surrounded the abandoned workshop before dawn. Fog moved from the harbor across the empty road. Ruby sat beside Vincent in the rear of the central vehicle. He checked the weapon beneath his jacket. Ruby watched his hands. Are you afraid? Vincent looked at her. Not for myself. She turned toward the window. That was not what I asked. He remained silent for several seconds. Yes. The answer surprised her. Vincent continued. Fear is useful when it tells a man what he cannot afford to lose. Ruby looked at him. And what are you afraid of losing? His gaze held hers. The vehicles stopped. The answer never came. The workshop smelled of wet wood and old metal. Most of the interior had survived the fire because the flames had been concentrated near the office where Elias Collins had died. Adrian had repaired the roof, but left the rest untouched. Ruby moved between covered work tables. Dust rested on tools she remembered from childhood. A silver hammer. A narrow polishing wheel. A wooden chair with one leg shorter than the others. She touched the chair and felt 17 years old again. Vincent remained several steps behind her. He did not rush her. Marco and the guards searched the rooms. Ruby approached the cabinet, marked with the cross circle. The doors were locked. Vincent lifted a metal bar. Ruby stopped him. Strength will destroy what is inside. She placed the ring against the symbol. Nothing happened. Then she remembered the measurements on the film. 3 turns right. 1 turn left. 2 taps against the center. The cabinet opened with a quiet release of air. Inside were photographs, design books, and a small recording machine. Ruby lifted the first photograph. It showed her father standing beside the father of Vincent. Both men faced the camera. Between them stood Adrian Salvatore. Vincent took the photograph. The date on the back was 1 week before the murder of his father. Ruby opened a design book. The final pages contained drawings of 2 identical signet rings. One belonged to Vincent. The other was marked for Adrian. Your uncle ordered a duplicate. Vincent studied the drawings. Only the head of the family can wear this design. Maybe Adrian intended to become the head. A sound came from the rear of the workshop. Vincent reached for Ruby. The first shot struck the cabinet. He pulled her to the floor and covered her with his body. Glass exploded above them. Guards returned fire. Ruby felt the weight of Vincent across her back and the rapid beat of his heart against her shoulder. He moved her behind a steel work table. Stay down. He rose. Ruby caught his jacket. Do not leave me. The words escaped before she could stop them. Vincent looked down at her hand, gripping the fabric. The violence in his expression changed. He knelt. His palm touched the side of her face. I will come back. How do you know? Because nothing in this building is strong enough to keep me from you. He disappeared into the smoke. Ruby remained behind the table while gunfire moved through the workshop. The recording machine rested beside her. A small light flashed beneath the dust. It still had power. Ruby pressed the button. The voice of her father filled the room. If this recording is found, Adrian Salvatore has already decided that both families belong to him. Ruby stopped breathing. The recording continued. Adrian ordered me to create a second ring. He said he needed access to every vault and account belonging to the Salvatore family. When I refused, he threatened my daughter. I agreed to finish the mechanism, but I changed the design. Only Ruby knows the rhythm that opens it. Tears blurred her vision. The voice of Elias grew weaker. Vincent Salvatore must learn the truth. His father discovered the betrayal and planned to remove Adrian. That is why he died. A man appeared through the smoke. Ruby expected Vincent. It was one of the attackers. He raised a weapon. Ruby grabbed the silver hammer from the floor and struck his wrist. The weapon fell. She kicked it beneath the table and ran. The man caught the back of her coat. Before he could pull her down, Vincent emerged from the darkness. He struck the attacker with a force that sent him against the wall. The man reached for a knife. Vincent stopped him. The fight ended quickly. Ruby saw the savage control in Vincent. He did not lose himself. He chose every movement with terrifying precision. When the man no longer presented a threat, Vincent turned toward Ruby. Blood marked his knuckles. None of it appeared to be his. He crossed the room and took her face between his hands. "Are you hurt?" "No." He checked her arms and shoulders. Ruby touched the cut near his eyebrow. "You came back." Vincent closed his eyes for 1 second beneath her fingers. "I told you I would." Marco entered with the guards. The attackers are secured. One of them carried Belandi identification. Ruby looked at Vincent. "Celeste, or someone who wants us to believe it was Celeste." Ruby lifted the recording machine. "My father named Adrian." The expression of Vincent became empty. The man who raised him had killed his father. The man who called him son during the funeral had spent 12 years standing beside the empire he had stolen. Vincent listened to the recording alone. When he left the workshop, dawn had turned the harbor silver. Ruby found him beside the water. He stood without a coat despite the cold. She stopped beside him. He did not look at her. "Adrian taught me how to hold a weapon. He taught me how to recognize a lie. He stood behind me when I took control of the family." Ruby watched the fog move over the water. "He made himself necessary." Vincent looked at her. "I should have seen it. You were grieving. Grief does not excuse blindness." "No, it explains it." His expression hardened. "Your father died because Adrian feared what he had built." Ruby felt tears rise again. Vincent reached toward her face but stopped before touching her. Ruby took his hand and placed it against her cheek. The restraint in him broke. He pulled her against his chest. Ruby held the front of his shirt. For several seconds, they stood without speaking. His arms tightened around her. The embrace was not gentle. It carried anger, guilt, fear, and something deeper than either of them was ready to name. When Vincent lowered his head, Ruby did not move away. Their mouths almost touched. A vehicle door slammed behind them. Vincent released her immediately. Marco approached. "Adrian has called a meeting of the family council. He claims Vincent has been manipulated by a waitress working for the Belandi family." Ruby laughed without humor. "He thinks I work for Celeste. He needs the families to doubt you before the recording is heard." Marco said. Vincent looked toward the city. "Then we will give them something more convincing than doubt." He turned to Ruby. "We are announcing an engagement." She stared at him. "No. It will protect you." "No, Ruby. I will not pretend to love you so your family believes I am useful." Vincent became still. Pretend Ruby heard the danger in the word. She stepped closer. "You nearly kissed me twice. You stand outside my door. You say you are afraid of losing me. Then the moment your empire is threatened, you turn everything into strategy again." Vincent looked at her as if she had placed a blade against his throat. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." "You know the truth." "I know about Adrian. I do not know about you." The wind moved between them. Ruby continued. "Do you want me beside you because I can open the ring? Because the families will hesitate to harm the woman wearing it? Or because you cannot imagine letting me go?" Vincent remained silent. The silence was his answer. Ruby stepped back. "I will help expose Adrian. I will not become another object you hide evidence inside." She walked toward the vehicles. Vincent did not stop her. That hurt more than if he had. The family council gathered inside an old mansion overlooking the Hudson River. Ruby arrived beside Vincent wearing a dark green dress chosen by nobody but herself. The ring remained on her finger. Dozens of family representatives filled the candlelit hall. Adrian stood near the fireplace. Celeste and her father occupied the opposite side of the room. The recording from the workshop was hidden inside the jacket of Vincent. Copies of the financial records had been placed in 3 secure locations. Ruby carried nothing. She had spent the drive memorizing every name, date, account, and payment on the photographic film. Her father had taught her to remember patterns. Years of restaurant work had sharpened that ability. Ruby could recall a table of 20 orders after hearing them once. Adrian believed the evidence existed only inside the ring. He did not understand that Ruby had become another copy. Adrian addressed the council. My nephew has allowed an unknown woman to compromise the security of our family. She appeared during negotiations, stole a ceremonial ring, and led Vincent into an attack staged by the Belandi family. Vincent stood beside Ruby. You ordered the attack. Adrian smiled sadly. That accusation comes from a dead jeweler and a frightened waitress. Ruby looked around the room. Did a frightened waitress transfer $4 million from Salvatore shipping to Black Harbor Properties 3 days before the murder of Antonio Salvatore? The room changed. Adrian looked at her. Ruby continued. Did a frightened waitress pay Leo Marconi, Samuel Ortega, and Victor Dane through the Harbor East account? One of the older council members turned toward Adrian. Those men carried out the shooting. Adrian recovered quickly. Numbers can be invented. Vincent removed the recording machine. Voices cannot. Before he could activate it, the lights went out. Ruby heard movement behind her. A hand covered her mouth. Another arm closed around her waist. She tried to scream. A needle entered her neck. The last thing she saw was Vincent turning toward her through the darkness. He reached for her. Then the floor disappeared. Ruby woke inside an abandoned church. Her hands were bound to a wooden chair. Rain struck the broken stained glass windows. Candles surrounded the altar. Armed men guarded every entrance. Adrian stood before her. The calm uncle had disappeared. In his place was a man exhausted by decades of pretending. You remember the records, he said. Ruby kept her breathing steady. I remember many things. He crouched in front of her. Your father had the same irritating confidence. You killed him. He killed himself when he refused to understand necessity. Ruby wanted to strike him. Instead, she looked at the duplicate ring on his hand. You found the second ring. Adrian smiled. After the fire, but you could never open it. The smile faded. Elias changed the mechanism. Only I know the rhythm. That is why you kept the workshop. Adrian stood. I believed the instructions were hidden there. Then Vincent placed the original ring on the finger of the daughter of Elias Collins. You knew who I was at the restaurant. Not until I saw your name on the employee list after the dinner was arranged. Celeste created the spill so I could confirm whether Vincent had moved the evidence. He surprised me by choosing you. Ruby looked toward the altar. What do you want? Vincent will bring every copy of the evidence. He will destroy it in front of the council. Then you will open my ring. He will not surrender his empire for me. Adrian studied her. You still do not understand him. The church doors opened. Wind and rain swept through the aisle. Vincent entered alone. His black coat was soaked. Blood marked one side of his collar. He carried a metal case. Ruby felt relief so powerful that it became pain. Adrian moved behind her and placed a weapon against her head. Vincent stopped. Where are your guards? Adrian asked. Outside the boundary you demanded. The evidence. Vincent placed the case on the floor. Every copy. Adrian ordered one of his men to open it. Inside were printed records, memory cards, the photographic film, and the recording from the workshop. Adrian smiled. Burn them. Vincent looked at Ruby. She shook her head. The movement pressed the weapon harder against her. Do it, Adrian said. Vincent removed a silver lighter. Ruby watched him kneel beside the metal case. The empire he had spent 12 years defending rested inside it. The truth about his father rested inside, quoted. Vincent lit the first page. Flames moved across the records. He did not look away from Ruby. Adrian laughed as the memory cards melted. The photographic film curled and turned black. The voice of Elias Collins disappeared beneath the fire. Ruby felt tears reach her face. Vincent had chosen her. Not the evidence. Not revenge. Not the empire. And Matter-Jab. When the final document burned, Adrian lowered the weapon slightly, opened the second ring. Ruby looked at him. "Untee me." Adrian cut the rope around one hand, but kept the weapon against her. Ruby took the duplicate ring. It looked identical to the one belonging to Vincent. She tapped it twice, paused, then tapped once. The compartment opened. Adrian exhaled. Inside was a narrow key. He reached for it. Ruby closed her fist. "Before you take this, you should know what my father understood about men like you." Adrian narrowed his eyes. "You believe evidence is power because evidence can be destroyed." Vincent began walking toward them. Adrian raised the weapon again. "Stay back," Ruby continued. "But evidence is only information. Information can be remembered." The smile vanished from the face of Adrian. Ruby looked toward the council members, standing in the shadows along the side aisles. Adrian had invited them to witness the surrender of Vincent. Now they would witness something else. Ruby began reciting. Harbor East account. March 14. $2 million to Leo Marconi. A murmur moved through the church. Adrian gripped her shoulder. "Stop." Ruby continued. Black Harbor Properties. March 16. $1 million to Samuel Ortega. Vincent took another step. Ruby recited every name, every date, every payment. She described the symbol used in the ledger and the location of the surviving workshop. She repeated the final words of her father from memory. Adrian pressed the weapon against her temple. "One more word, and she dies." Vincent stopped. Ruby looked at him. She saw terror in his eyes. Not the fear of losing power. The fear of losing her. Ruby smiled through her tears. "You asked what he was afraid to lose." Adrian looked between them. Ruby continued. "It was never the ring." Adrian pulled the trigger. The weapon clicked. Nothing happened. Adrian stared at it. Marco stepped from behind the altar. Ruby remembered the moment she woke in the church. One guard had checked her ropes before Adrian arrived. The guard had been Marco. He had replaced the ammunition. Vincent crossed the remaining distance. Adrian tried to raise the weapon again. Vincent struck him. The weapon fell across the stone floor. Adrian reached for a knife. Vincent caught his arm and forced him against the altar. The sound of bone breaking echoed through the church. Adrian screamed. Vincent placed one hand around his throat. Years of betrayal entered the face of Vincent. "You killed my father." Adrian struggled. "He would have destroyed everything." "You killed Elias Collins. He was only a craftsman." Vincent tightened his grip. Ruby saw the moment he decided to kill him. She rose from the chair and touched his shoulder. "Vincent." He did not respond. Ruby stepped closer. "Do not let the final choice he makes for you be the man you become." Vincent looked at her. The violence in him did not disappear. It obeyed her. He released Adrian. Marco and the guards dragged the older man away from the altar. The council members moved aside. Nobody tried to help him. Vincent turned toward Ruby. His hands trembled when he touched her face. "Did he hurt you?" "No." "Are you certain?" "Yes." He pulled her against him. Ruby wrapped both arms around his body. The church, the council, and the armed men disappeared. Vincent buried his face against her hair. "I watched them take you." His voice broke. Ruby held him tighter. "You found me. I would have burned every building in this city. You burned the evidence. I would have burned the empire." She leaned back and looked at him. "Why?" Vincent stared at her as if the answer terrified him. "Because there is no empire without you in it." The words opened everything he had refused to say. Ruby touched his face. "This cannot become another strategy. It is not. You cannot protect me by deciding everything alone. I know. You cannot hide the truth because you are afraid I will leave. His jaw tightened. I know. Ruby waited. Vincent lowered his forehead to hers. I do not know how to need someone without trying to control the danger around them. Then learn. Will you stay while I do? Ruby looked at the man who had placed a ring in her pocket to save an empire. The man who had knelt before his enemies to protect her dignity. The man who had destroyed his revenge rather than risk her life. I will stay if you stop confusing devotion with possession. Vincent closed his eyes. I will try. That is not a promise. It is the most honest promise I have. Ruby kissed him. For 1 second, Vincent did not move. Then 12 days of fear and restraint broke between them. His hand moved behind her neck. His other arm drew her against him with enough force to lift her from the floor. The kiss was not gentle. It carried everything they had denied beside the harbor. Inside the penthouse. And across the restaurant table. When they finally separated, the storm had begun to quiet. Sunlight entered through the broken stained glass windows. Colored light fell across the face of Vincent. Ruby looked toward the metal case filled with ashes. The evidence is gone. Vincent glanced at the counsel. No. You gave it a voice. Adrian was removed from the Salvatore family before sunrise. The rival families recognized his transfers, his betrayal, and his attempt to murder the woman publicly, claimed by Vincent. Celeste admitted she had created the wine spill under instructions from Adrian. She had believed the plan was intended to embarrass Vincent during negotiations. Her father withdrew her from Manhattan before the Salvatore Council could decide whether ignorance was enough to save her. Vincent did not marry her. He did not negotiate another alliance. He spent the following weeks dismantling every business Adrian had controlled. Men who remained loyal to the betrayal disappeared from positions of influence. Those who had helped conceal the murders lost everything they had gained. Ruby refused to remain hidden inside the penthouse. She returned to Belladonna. The first evening, she walked through the dining room. Every waiter stopped to look at her. Howard rushed toward her. Miss Collins, we were not informed that you planned to work tonight. Ruby tied an apron around her waist. That is because I did not ask permission. A black vehicle stopped outside. Vincent entered the restaurant with Marco behind him. The room became silent. Ruby continued arranging glasses. Vincent approached the service station. You are working. I told you I was returning. I believed you meant eventually. I meant today. His gaze moved over the apron. You are wearing my ring while carrying wine. Ruby lifted her hand. The ring had been resized. It now rested securely against her finger. You survived the first tray. A waiter nearby tried not to smile. Vincent looked toward him. The waiter immediately returned to work. Ruby placed a glass of red wine on a tray. Vincent followed her toward the private dining room. You have guards outside every entrance, she said. 2. There are 6. 4 are customers. Ruby looked at the men seated at separate tables. All 4 immediately looked away. She sighed. We discussed this. They are not watching you. They are watching everyone else. That is the same thing. Vincent stopped her near the door. I am trying. Ruby saw the discomfort behind the admission. For a man who controlled cities with a quiet command, allowing someone else to define freedom was more difficult than facing a weapon. She touched the front of his black shirt. I know. His attention moved to her mouth. Howard appeared from the kitchen. Mr. Salvatore. Your private table is prepared. Vincent did not look away from Ruby. I am not dining privately. Howard hesitated. Where would you like to sit? Vincent looked toward the small table beside the service station. There. It was the least desirable table in Belladonna. Waiters passed it constantly. The kitchen doors opened beside it. No wealthy guest ever requested it. Ruby raised an eyebrow. You own every table in this restaurant. This one is closest to you. Vincent sat. Ruby served him between her other tables. He remained for 3 hours. He watched her laugh with the kitchen staff. He watched her comfort a nervous new waitress. He watched her refuse an insulting customer without needing his intervention. At the end of the night, Ruby placed the final check in front of him. Vincent opened it. There was no amount written inside, only an address. "What is this?" "The workshop of my father." Vincent looked at her. "I purchased it from Black Harbor Properties." "You purchased it with the money recovered from the accounts of Adrian?" Ruby sat across from him. "I am reopening it. As a jewelry workshop, as a place where people can learn the craft without becoming involved with families like yours." Vincent studied her face. "You want me to stay away? I want you to fund nothing and control nothing." A faint smile touched him. "That sounds like staying away. You may visit. Under supervision, mine." The smile remained. "I accept." Ruby leaned closer. "There is one more condition." "Name it." "No hidden compartments intended for murder evidence." Vincent looked at the ring on her hand. "What about one intended for something else?" Ruby narrowed her eyes. "What did you do?" He reached across the table. "Press the stone." Ruby followed the old rhythm. 2 taps. A pause. 1 final tap. The onyx opened. No memory card rested inside. No film. Only a narrow strip of paper. Ruby removed it. 4 words were written in the controlled handwriting of Vincent. This time, "Choose me." Ruby looked up. Vincent was no longer smiling. He appeared more vulnerable than he had when surrounded by weapons in the abandoned church. The restaurant had emptied. Only the staff remained in the distant kitchen. Ruby folded the paper. "You could have simply asked. I have discovered that simple things are difficult with you. Simple things are difficult with you." Vincent stood and walked around the table. He lowered himself onto one knee. Ruby looked toward the kitchen. Every employee had gathered behind the glass doors. Unlike the night of the public search, nobody looked frightened. They were smiling. Vincent took her hand. "The first time I placed this ring on you, I was protecting a secret." Ruby looked into his eyes. "The second time, I was protecting you." And now Vincent removed the ring and held it between them. "Now I have nothing left to hide inside it." His voice lowered. "Ruby Collins. Choose me when I am controlling. Choose me when I am afraid. Choose me when I forget that protection requires trust. Remind me that power does not make every decision correct." Ruby felt tears reach her eyes. That is not a romantic proposal. It is honest. It is also very demanding. "I can add flowers." She laughed. The sound changed his entire face. Ruby held out her hand. Vincent slid the ring onto her finger. She looked down at him. "I choose the man who came back through the smoke." His eyes darkened. "I choose the man who burned his revenge." She touched his cheek. "I choose the man who is learning that love does not need a cage." Vincent rose and kissed her. Applause erupted from the kitchen. Ruby pulled back. "Did you arrange that?" "No." Howard opened the kitchen door. "We have been standing here for 20 minutes. Vincent looked toward the staff. "Return to work. The restaurant is closed." Ruby said, "Then they can go home." Nobody moved. Ruby smiled and lifted a glass of red wine from the table. Vincent looked at it suspiciously. "What are you doing?" "Creating a memory." She tipped the glass. A single drop landed on the center of his white shirt. Every employee became silent. Vincent looked down at the stain. Ruby waited. The feared mafia boss lifted his eyes. "You missed most of the shirt." Ruby poured another drop. Better Vincent caught her waist and pulled her close. "You have no idea what began the last time you spilled wine on me." Ruby looked at the ring shining between them. "I know exactly what began." Outside, black vehicles waited beneath the lights of Manhattan. Inside Belladonna, the man feared by every family held the woman who had refused to fear him. Ruby had once believed the ring in her pocket was a trap. She finally understood that the real danger had never been the evidence hidden inside it. The danger was the moment Vincent trusted her with the truth. The danger was the moment she saw the lonely man beneath the power. The danger was loving someone capable of burning an empire to keep her alive. Ruby placed her hand against his heart. This time, the ring contained no secrets, only a choice. And they had chosen each other.